Good morning from Raleigh, North Carolina. I am celebrating an anniversary of when I very narrowly missed. I almost didn't become a graduate student at Texas Tech, a PhD student at Texas Tech. And of course wouldn't be doing what I'm going to be doing here in about an hour or so, teaching. So what happened was, I think I told you that I was a missionary, or full-time member is what we would call it, but you may know it as a missionary. And so I was doing, the Lord's work. And it was finally time for me, to leave Berkeley, if you will, to Lubbock. And by the way, if you're wondering, Berkeley and Lubbock are pretty much polar opposites of one another. You can't find a more radical political switch, let me assure you that. But at any rate, and so I went off. I thought I was going off. I was purchasing a ticket, and I noticed something that was very strange. As I was looking at the ticket, it seemed like the ticket that was available would have had me miss, if you will, would have had me miss the trip that I needed to take. It would have gotten me there too late. I'd already been, I don't know, I want to be careful of how to say this, but, this fellow was the gentleman who was responsible for teaching assistants and graduate part-time instructors, was already, worried out of his mind about when I was showing up. And he basically gave me a deadline of Friday. And if I didn't, my position would be, basically taken away. And I wouldn't have enough funding, if you will, to, attend the university if that happened. And so I was already in trouble. And I saw this trip, and this one trip basically would have gotten me there too late. But I also somehow or another found another trip that wasn't available on the ticket. And I'm not sure how that happened. By the way, this was in 2001, so this is the 20th year of this, 20th anniversary of it. I'm not sure how this happened, but there was another trip. Now, the one trip seemed to be more direct. It would have taken me, I think, eventually from, south a bit, from Berkeley on down, eventually into, I'm not sure, what would that be, Arizona, I guess New Mexico, Big Spring, and then eventually I get onto a Texas, New Mexico, Oklahoma coach that doesn't exist anymore, and go up to Lubbock. Well, it didn't quite happen but that wasn't the fastest trip. The fastest trip was going, if you will, from Berkeley up north, eventually into, I believe, maybe Denver, Well, wait a minute, hold on a second. I think I'd go through Reno, Then I'd go through Salt Lake City, Utah, and then Denver, and then on south. That was actually the fastest trip, but it wasn't available. And so I went up and I tried to explain to the ticket agent, hey, look, I see two tickets here, and one of them is available and one's not. And the lady, said, well, look, that's the one that is available is the one you take. And I tried to stress this to her. Now, here is a little cultural thing. This was also in the Oakland, there was an Oakland bus station. There wasn't a Berkeley bus station. And so, how do I put this without sounding like some stereotypical? All right. Well, I'm African American, right? And I think most African American people who grew up in my community would recognize a face that would come off of, your mother or your grandmother, in a tone of voice that made it sound like, hey, look, I am not going to deal with you anymore. This is what we got. And, take it or leave it, or in some cases, take it or shut up or I'll whoop your behind. Are you familiar with that face and that tone? Well, that's basically what I got. And so I gave up. I didn't give up though. I called the headquarters and I said, hey man, is it possible that I can just basically make this ticket work? In other words, can I just hop on, the bus I need to go on, going north and eventually make it to my time? And basically, just communicate with the bus drivers, and eventually they will probably reprint the tickets too. And so that's basically what happened. Well, still, and it looks like it's going to be over 5 minutes. And I know this is going to upset, and I'm sorry. But at any rate, but still, nevertheless, what happened was it seemed like I still was running late, and there was nothing I could do about it. Man, I was struggling, I was suffering. By the time I got to Salt Lake City, it looked like I was going to be in trouble. I was going to miss it, and therefore, if you will, not be able to afford tuition at Texas Tech University. I've often said I'm a poor black man from the South, and I mean it. Matter of fact, it's not going to be too long, but I'm going to be even poorer still. but nevertheless, I decided that, just to hold faith, Well, it turns out there was this guy, and I'm not sure why, but this fella was like just a knight in shining armor. This brother was, I don't know, maybe because he saved my neck, but he I think he wore an ascot. I don't know. Do Greyhound bus drivers wear ascots? Those little things. I mean, it looked like if he could, he probably would have driven the bus in a smoking jacket. I mean, I don't know what was going on, but man, that dude was handsome as can be, and maybe because he was saving my neck. This dude drove his fanny off, took very few breaks, and got me there current to, I think, Denver. And then eventually I went down from Denver, I believe, eventually from Amarillo to Lubbock. I think that's how that went. And I finally made it, if you will, to Lubbock, Texas. Now, understand that this took over a day to do. So, and I had no shower, and I was in jogging pants and a t-shirt, and matter of fact, I walked, if you will, from 1313 Street, I ain't lying, if you will, to 2501 Broadway, I think that's what it was, the 2500 Broadway, which is Texas Tech, and Holden Hall. And I found the history department, and I must have, man, I don't know, this lady, I apologized for the haggard appearance. I explained who I was, and she said, get downstairs because you're almost about to lose your position, is basically what she said. And I went down, and this fellow who, actually, I'll tell you, I thought this fellow was almost like, like the Wizard of Oz, where you get this giant guy. Actually, I was so afraid, I started I was looking up and knocking on the door. Actually, I opened the door. The guy was probably about a good 6 or 7 inches shorter than I was. Maybe 4 or 5. But at any rate, kind of calmed me down. But he was like, I was on the phone right now. I was about to give your stuff up. but I actually, man, that was a close shave. All right. Okay. Well, at any rate, I know all of you wish I would make these things shorter. So I'm going to try to get off of here now. But man, 20 years ago, my goose was almost cooked if I didn't do something, if I didn't advocate for myself, which I still do a very poor job. Maybe I need to remember that, if you will, what I had to do, if you will, to get my teaching position, teaching assistant position at Texas Tech. Okay, take care and goodbye.